Good morning. It's Saturday. I'm in the office. You know what that means. The Saturday Morning Hustle podcast. Today, we're going to continue on the discussion I started on the bonus series of the Saturday Morning Hustle, that being the balance series that I do once a month on Mondays, the last Monday of the month. The last one I did was all about setting a price or getting what you're worth. Today I want to talk a little bit more in the idea of self-value, how you picture yourself, how you value yourself, and then how that relates to the reality of the market, if you will. But at the end of the day, you need to be thinking of yourself first, putting value on what it is you do, your experience, your ideas, your knowledge, not too much because it has to be realistic at the same time, and how you can continue to have a great attitude, great confidence in yourself, but understand the reality of where you fit in the job market, how you get to charge if you are a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, what you bring to the conversation, and then really at the meat of that will be what things you need to get paid for immediately and how many things that you can be patient on and go big picture. Because that's a real key to being highly successful, is getting the big picture so that you don't nickel and dime yourself out of great opportunities down the road. So that's the conversation today here on the podcast. Let's start with self-worth, self-value. It's very easy to get your self-worth wrapped up in something as simple as a salary or a job title, or comparing yourself, what you have, what you've earned, what you've gained in the world versus other people. Trying to keep up with the Joneses, if you will, and it's a terrible idea. Now, there's a basic ballpark that you should be considering, of course. If you've been doing something for 1 year or 10 years, there's difference in what perceived value of your product service, what your offer is as a human being, as an employee, as a freelancer, as a collaborator, as a member of a team, as a volunteer even. What you bring to the table has to have some basis in reality when you are talking to other people, when you're having external conversations. But internally, you always need to have the highest self-wealth and self-worth for yourself as possible. It begins at home and literally inside of you, because no one's going to think more of you higher than you do of yourself. So even if you have to temper that conversation outwardly with based on experience, based on past work, based on people who could give you a reference, etc., and the levels of attention and income, etc., that other people similar to you are receiving is also part of that equation as well. You know, one of the big tragedies of the world right now, there's a lot of them, but social media has a whole generation of young people putting their self-worth in the opinions of other people, down to the silliest of things like likes and the thumbs up, the heart, the smiley face, followers, play numbers, download numbers, etc. Obviously, the more people listening, the more people paying attention, the more interaction you can get, the more communication you can get, the more social you are on social media. That's the point. But it's not the point for you as a human being to wrap yourself up in the perception of other people of you. You have to create a perception. You have to follow through. We've talked a lot on this podcast about consistency, delivery, execution, etc. But at the end of the day, your self-worth, your self-value, who you are as a human being, what you bring to the table, what you mean to the people who actually know you, that you are important to them and they are important to you, friends, family, actual people that you know, not someone that you just know online or know of or follow. Those interactions, the real people, the real world stuff, that's what's most important. It's so much more value than followers, likes, clicks, all of that stuff. Now, at some point, how you get paid, if you want to be a blogger, a social media influencer, a digital content creator, or even an artist, musician, etc., you're creating work and then using social media and other digital tools for promotion, self-brand, etc., all of that. It all goes into, there's the business side and then the personal side. And the business side is very mechanical. It is very, how many times a day you post, what format you use per social media channel. Do you go wide off every single channel, or do you go deep off one or two and spend a lot of time there with a lot of content, a lot of value for the people that follow you there? What is your philosophy? What is your strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? You have to set goals. You have to take those goals, create objectives. From those objectives, you build in the tactics. This is what social media is. This is what digital marketing is our tactics, the execution, how you get people's attention, how you keep their attention, how you engage them, how you begin and then develop relationships, etc. All of that comes from the marketing work that you do on the business side of your persona, your self-brand. But internally, in your own head, you can't get too wrapped up in it. Number one, everyone, you've heard me say this many, many times in this podcast, everyone hears more no's than yeses in the world. It just is what it is. It's not you, it's everyone. So the fact that you're not an overnight sensation, the fact that it's not easy, the fact that it didn't just happen for you because you wanted it to happen, that's what happens with everyone. So it's not you. The way you overcome it, of course, is continuation, consistency, tenacity, patience. And then you have the potential to develop something, whether it's a career, side hustle, or just an elevation of who you are as an employee within the organization that you work for, or doing something that's worthwhile in your community, as something, a side passion, like being an artist, musician, etc. All of that is still external. You have to internally think of yourself in the proper way before you can do any of these things. You have to love yourself before anyone else is going to love you. It's a real simple concept, but you, at the same time, the way that you keep yourself motivated, that keep yourself inspired, the way that you have patience, that you can go long, that you can play the big picture, is because you don't wrap your self-worth up in the external elements. The fact that you're not an overnight sensation does not make you a worthless person, because no one has really ever been an overnight sensation. You're just falling into this trap of how you think other people have done it, because you don't actually get to see the work they put in, the hours, the struggle, the rejection, more no's and yeses, etc. So you have to push. You have to have an external system in place. You have to be doing things in order to earn people's attention, continue to keep their attention, provide them something of value, and then create that online digital relationship. It might extend into your real life and it might not, but you have to do that work on the business side, on the internal side. Keep yourself positive and keep thinking about the big picture instead of the small stuff. If you just look at how many likes or how many clicks you got today, every single day, it can be maddening. It can be frustrating. It could keep you from moving on to the next one and the next one. It's that consistency, that continual development is where real success lies. So don't get hung up in the small numbers. Don't get hung up in the dailies and weeklies. Instead, think in months, in quarters, in years. I've been doing this podcast for a long time. There are people within the last 30 days, within the last 90 days, within the last year who have just now discovered it, who are now finding value in it. There are people who have been on the ride the whole time, who now see it in a different light, have a different understanding of it and what I'm trying to do. That's the big picture. That's the long ride. And the balance here, when I tell you that the numbers don't matter, how many followers you have is irrelevant. A great example of that is about 2 years into doing this podcast, in a span of 3 weeks, I had 3 different people, one almost back to back, tell me sort of in the world, not online, not an email, not a DM, but meeting them out into the world, people I had already known or were familiar with. One person I knew well, 2 other people that I was familiar with, we were friendly, tell me that there was something happening in their life that was frustrating, was negative, and getting something as simple as a positive message on a Saturday morning when they weren't expecting it was beneficial to them. One person literally got motivated to make that career change that they needed to make, but just were afraid to do. They took a risk. They took the jump, if you will, and they made a career move that turned out really well for them. They were super happy about it. Things were going better, and they were very emotional about giving me this conversation. If I had been stuck on the fact that 10 people I'd give the thumbs up or the like on that post for that week, I would have considered myself a failure. But there was someone out there who literally changed something about their life because I hit them with the right message at the right time and everything clicked. Now, I'm not taking credit for their success. They did all of that. But that's the example of impact that you can have that is hard or impossible to measure on numbers, on clicks, on likes, on all of that. So that's why you can't get hung up on it, because the real world impact, actual relationships you're creating, actual development, and actually working through the process, learning, getting better, changing your equipment, upgrading, moving along with the times. You can't be the best podcaster in 2018. You have to be the best podcaster in 2021 and 2022. If it's going to be an aspect of your career, your life, if things that you're working on, etc., you have to continually do these things, and you can't do them. You can't grow and learn and be the best at it today if you aren't doing it today. So anything you're trying to do, anything you're trying to achieve, don't look at the day-to-day. Don't look at the small increments. If you're on your job and you can't get your boss to buy into your ideas, keep trying. Keep plugging away. Keep improving. Keep learning through the process. Eventually it can happen. Eventually they'll learn, listen to you, listen to that idea. If that idea takes off, now you're the next person on the fast track in the company. There you go. If your idea is going to be a side hustle, if you are trying to create a business, a startup, so that you can quit that day job, got to start. You just got to start somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect out of the gate. It can be a side hustle. It can be do something you nights and weekend. It can be do something that you do after work while you keep that job, keep your bills paid, and have patience in developing. That creates a big picture scenario that eventually gets you where you need to be. Unless you're 100 years old, you got plenty of time left. And if you're 100, you may still have time. I just saw a lady on the news the other day that was 107. She looked fantastic. So if you're 100, you might have 7 more years left in you. But don't take it for granted. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow, so don't wait too long. Now let's end on the big picture. I promised you a conversation about why the big picture is important. As someone who has been owning or running a business of my own for at least one business consistently over the last 35 years, working corporate and having my own side hustles or my own main thing like I do now, working for myself, etc., I've learned a lot of lessons about how business success really happens. And one of the things that you have to know is it does not happen easy. It does not happen overnight. You must earn it through effort and consistency. It's the only way that anything ever pays off for anyone. I guarantee you that. Now, when it comes to being a social media influencer, be a podcaster, be a blogger, being an artist, painting, photography, creating videos, dancing, etc., every time you do it, you get better. Every time you practice it, you get better. Muscle memory and memorization and routine and all of this. Every time you do something, you get better. Every time you do something and it doesn't turn out as you expected, what other people would call failures, we call setbacks on this podcast. It's never a failure unless you completely quit. But every time you do something, you learn, you get feedback, you understand how to do it better the next time. And you keep doing it over and over and over again. You know, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback did not become great at passing after 10 passes. It was 10,000 passes or 100,000 passes. So you have to have that same mindset in anything you're working on, any pursuit, anything that you have passion for that you want to be successful at. You have to have that same mindset. So don't split the small stuff. Think of the big picture. Think about where you'll be when your self-brand catches up to this idea, when people understand the value that you're bringing to them, and that the payoff is where you're what you're ultimately trying to achieve. It's not about making $1 today. It's about setting yourself up to be worth $10 tomorrow. That's more important. That's why the big picture is more important. I also can't get bogged down in the negativity and all of the minutia of the day to day. Think big picture, look big picture, go long, extend yourself with patience, be consistent, prove yourself, learn your craft along the way, build a structure that will support what you're doing. And when you become successful and start with success that can become repeatable and then build more and more success, you'll have so much support underneath you because you've earned it. You've worked the process. You know how it happened. You know how you got here. So you know how to sustain here. And if something happens like COVID-19 that knocks everyone on their butt, you'll know how to adapt and pivot and move forward again because you built it, because you went through the process, because you were patient, because you learned, because you developed all of these things, and you have something to show for it and something to prove by it. There you go. Go long, but start at home. And home is inside yourself. Think positively, bet on yourself, but be patient. Go long, develop, continue, process, consistency, deliver without expectation, and eventually you get to where you need to be, not where you set out to be. Trust me on that. Good luck.
Saturday morning hustle. Saturday